Land Rover is generally not a brand that you think of when you think of reliability, but this new Defender is actually a lot more reliable than people think. So we're going to be going over the reliability of the new Defender, and then I'm going to give you guys practical advice as to what you should option out on your Defender to have the best ownership experience. I'll include a link to the Land Rover and Lehigh's website in the description down below. They're providing us with this Defender. Let's get right into the video. There are 4 different powertrain options available with the new Defender: a turbo 2-liter 4-cylinder, a turbo 3-liter inline-6, a supercharged 5-liter V8, and finally a twin-turbo 4.4-liter V8. When it comes to the reliability of these 4 powertrains, the powertrains in the center, so the 3-liter inline-6 and the 5-liter supercharged V8, are the most reliable. The turbo 2-liter 4-cylinder and then the 4.4-liter V8 at the top are the ones that are going to have the most issues. The 2-liter has just been problematic since Land Rover put this engine in the new Defender. I think TfL even had a failure when they bought their first new Defender because it had the 2-liter. This engine is also underpowered for the Defender, and so I think it's well worth spending the extra money to get the inline-6. Now when it comes to the 4.4-liter V8, that's actually a BMW powertrain that Land Rover is borrowing for the Octa. They also have that powertrain in some of their other vehicles like the Sport and the full-size. And long story short, that engine's over a decade old at this point. BMW has made it better over the years, but it's a very, very, very complex engine, and so maintaining on it, especially long-term, is just going to be more expensive. The Octa is also a very expensive vehicle, so you should kind of expect that in general. But yeah, it's just a very complex engine, so complex engine means there's more that can potentially go wrong. And then finally, there are issues with coolant leaks. I actually had the coolant line need to be replaced on my Defender at about 10,000 miles, so it is something to be aware of. And I think these more minor issues like the coolant leaks could be fixed with the Defender if they shrunk the maintenance intervals. Right now, Land Rover says that you only need to bring the car in once a year every 10,000 miles. I think that they should shrink that to twice a year and 5,000 miles. I think that would fix a lot because there'd be a lot more that'd be able to be looked over, and just having an oil change every 5,000 miles versus 10,000 miles, even with modern oil, it just makes more sense. If you'd like to see more content like this, and if you'd like to help me get to 500,000 subscribers before the end of the year, well, consider subscribing. I'd appreciate it. Now, another issue that many of you have probably seen on road if you've seen a Defender is with the DRLs. Basically, they go out, and you can't just replace the DRL. You'd have to replace the whole headlight. So that's where the winking Defender memes come from. But yeah, that can be an expensive fix to have to replace a big fancy headlight. So it is something to also be aware of if you're looking at an older, used, new Defender. Hopefully that made sense. Now, surprisingly, the suspension on the new Defender has actually been rock solid. You can get the new Defender with standard coil springs, or you can get it with air suspension, and both suspension systems actually do quite well. This particular Defender has the coil springs, but if you do get the air suspension, do not modify it. A lot of people add lift rods to give them a little bit more clearance to fit a bigger tire. And here's the deal. It is a very sophisticated suspension system, and so if you do go down that route, understand you are likely to have to replace an airbag. Airbags on this are pretty expensive. If I remember right, they're around $4,000-ish, and so I would definitely consider not doing that modification. I do have some more good news when it comes to reliability. The power steering issue that I had with my particular Defender, where it just randomly went out, it's actually not an issue anymore with the new ones. They've resolved the issue from what people have told me. So understand, if you get a 2023 or older, you probably could run into that issue. Could, not will. If you get the newer ones, though, you don't have to worry about it. Now, the new Defender has a digital gauge cluster and a big infotainment system. The early ones did have issues, especially with the infotainment system, where the screen would just completely go out, especially with hotter temperatures. And so again, if you get an older Defender, again, like a 2020 to maybe a 2022, then you could have issues with that. And you guys will probably notice a pattern with this video where the first few years of the Defender weren't horrible, but they did have some problems, and they have worked out a lot of those problems with the newer ones. I'm not trying to push you guys to buy a newer, more expensive vehicle. The reality is that Land Rover has been working on this car and improving it as the years go on. But the final point on the software section, understand this is a very software/electronics heavy vehicle. It's very sophisticated in that way. Now, one of the best ways to navigate around this situation is don't let your battery voltage get low. drive your vehicle on a regular basis. If you let your Defender sit for a few weeks without driving it or starting it up and the battery goes flat, then yeah, you're probably going to have some sort of electrical issue because it's going to cause a lot of the systems to glitch out. So driving on a regular basis, and then with a lot of these modern cars, if you have some sort of glitch, a lot of the time all you have to do is just park the car, like turn it off, get out of it, lock it, let the computers do a hard reset after having it locked for a few minutes, and then get back in, and then usually the system is up and running at normal capacity. Another glitch that people mainly experienced with the first iteration of this new Defender was with the cruise control system just not operating. Again, that's one of those things where you just have to drive the car yourself, but it is something that is annoying when it happens. And finally, the ventilated seat function. This car actually doesn't have ventilated seats, funny enough. Basically glitches where the function doesn't turn on or the fan is just extremely loud or goes in and out. And I actually had the issue with my Defender where the fan would randomly go in and out. But a big plus with these seats and just the general interior is they actually hold up really well. This is something that people have really liked about the new Defenders, is how everything seems to just hold up well from a durability perspective, even with a lot of use. So yes, there are issues that the new Defender can encounter, but a lot of these issues have been resolved with the newest version of the Defender that they released in the 25 model year. With that being said, let's take this out, drive it, and then give you guys some practical advice in terms of what package you should buy on the Defender to have the best ownership experience. I picked out the 2-liter for this video because it's the most problematic powertrain, and you know, to be honest, I think that Land Rover should just get rid of it, at least here in the US market. Maybe if, you know, they want to sell it in other markets. But, you know, I understand that it helps out the Defender having with, oh, sorry, it helps the Defender have a lower entry-level price. It's just, it's not powerful enough. People in the US like power, and again, the reliability issues. So I think they should heavily consider just getting rid of it and simplifying the powertrain lineup. The Defender has too many powertrains, too many variants in general, too many powertrains. So let's first talk about what expectations you should have for the Defender. When it comes to daily driving, this drives very similar to any of the other Land Rovers, which is, let me move this out of the way for you guys, by the way, which is really nice. This is a very nice luxury vehicle. It's got very comfortable seats. Whether you're a small person or a big person, you'll fit in these seats very nicely. Great driving position. And you know, you will get some wind buffeting up top with the Defenders because it's a boxy SUV, but it's pretty well insulated. It's got pretty thick glass all around to help out with the insulation. And unlike a lot of other boxy off-road type vehicles, this is unibody construction with independent suspension all around, so it handles well on road. So you get the cool boxy style, but then you have good on-road driving manners, unlike the truck-based SUVs. And you guys can probably hear the wind buffeting there at the top. So on-road, you're getting a luxury car that looks like kind of like G-wagon type styling, Wrangler type styling, right? Boxy. So that's your expectation for on-road. You're gonna concede a little bit of luxury that you'd get in a more traditionally, like if you get a Range Rover Sport, you're not gonna get the wind buffeting, for example. You're gonna get a little bit more luxury in that sense. Okay. Off-road, there have been people that have reported issues off-road, but here's the two things that I've noticed with these people reporting issues off-road. The first group of people modify their Defenders, more specifically with the suspension. If you modify the suspension with the Defender, you are probably going to have issues. The lift rods that everyone uses for these Defenders, what they do is they trick the air suspension into thinking that you're at the lower ride height, so then it raises the suspension up and it goes, okay, this is normal, this is where I want to be. And so you're sitting with the suspension extended all the time. So of course that's going to put more wear and tear on the airbags. The airbags were designed to be at a certain height most of the time and be at that extended height for a short period of time, rock crawling. But if you're doing a bunch of driving on road where the suspension's constantly compressing and everything, and you have the suspension extended, of course something's going to break, of course. That's the first group. The second group, they kind of think that the Defender's like a Raptor. I've seen this happen all the time where people, they take these off-road and they just rally the crap out of it, which, don't get me wrong, I'm all about having fun. The vehicle wasn't designed for that. Now, it can handle rough terrain, obviously, and it can handle rough terrain at speed, but Land Rover's philosophy is always as slow as possible, as fast as necessary. So understand that if you get this for off-road purposes, right, if you plan on taking this off-road every so often, what you're going to want to do is be laid back and relaxed with your off-roading. You're not going to try to get done with the trail as fast as possible. You're going to go down the trail slow, leisurely. That's what Land Rover is all about. And that's actually where the suspension will perform the best, because if you try to go fast, it's a unibody vehicle. The forces will get transferred through the chassis, so you're going to feel a lot. But if you're just going slow over everything, just taking it easy, you're going to have a comfortable experience. You're going to actually be able to experience luxury off-roading, which is what this is trying to give you. So that's my practical advice there. Now, when it comes to packaging, like I said, I don't think the 2 liter is worth it. I think that you should spend the extra money. Again, this is a more expensive vehicle to maintain, so if you can afford to buy the vehicle, you can afford to pay for the maintenance, and then also probably buy a slightly higher up package on the Defender. Get the 3 liter inline 6 at least. And I think the 3 liter and the 5 liter V8 are the sweet spot for the Defender. If you're going to do off-roading, the 3 liter is the sweet spot. If you're not going to take it off-road, the 3 liter is still great. I think that's frankly the best powertrain in the Defender lineup. The 5 liter is going to give you the noise and a little bit more fun. So if you want noise and more fun, then the 5 liter is still a reliable powertrain and fun. The Octa is understand that's an SV car, right? That is all the technology, all the performance, and vehicles like that, I'm not saying the Octa is going to fall apart by any means. It's a really cool vehicle. It's really well built, but it's got a lot of complicated systems that are going to need a lot of tender love and care over the long term to keep them working under in proper operation. So it's going to be expensive. So the sweet spot is those two, and I would kind of just keep it somewhere there. And I think the best packaging with the Defender in general is either an S or an X Dynamic, because the S, you can add a lot of features. The X Dynamic comes with more features. Once you go up to X, right, you get to the fully loaded one, it's so much money, and you get a lot of nice features, nice interior and everything, but this interior is more than nice enough. And I like the synthetic materials. They actually hold up really well over time and feel really nice too. So that's kind of the way to go, is 3 liter or 5 liter, and get kind of like the middle of the line package that'll give you all the features that you want, and it'll also provide you with the reliability as well. And obviously, if you can fit it in your budget, getting the 25 pluses, and maybe you can just wait for a year for one of these to be on the used market, have a little bit of depreciation, that'll also probably be the route to go for most of you, to get a lot of the updates that Defender has now to make it more reliable from a software perspective, because that was something that was definitely causing issues. So there's my advice. Let me know you guys think about the new Defender. It's a lot more reliable than people think, and it is the most reliable Land Rover currently. If you get the 3 liter or the 5 liter, in terms of the electronics, the powertrain, everything that it has going for it, it is the most reliable Land Rover that you can buy. So if you want the Land Rover experience and you want it to be the least problematic, then the Defender is actually the vehicle to purchase.